Okay, so as we left off on the last video, we were talking about setting up a goal, and we're going to put it in this little corner here. So let's get straight into it. You can always draw your own one or find a picture on the internet, but for now, I'm just going to use one that Scratch has already made for us. I'm going to go down to Choose a Sprite and click on Choose a Sprite, and it'll bring us to the search section. And I think this beach ball looks good. I think it looks kind of like a portal, like it's going to portal us to the next level, and that's good. In another video, the next one after this one, I'll talk about setting up keys. So the keys will open up sections of the map, and the portal will make it go to the next backdrop and change the whole level completely. So I'm going to click on costumes. I'll make it a bit smaller. So as I said earlier, you can click on the size and type in another number, but doing this you need to remember to change it, and sometimes if you might save it now, maybe another time it will reset to 100. It means you'll need to make sure you click on here and put in a variable that says set size right here. So instead of that, just to make it foolproof, I would rather click on costumes, highlight the whole thing. We can just shrink it here. So remember, when I press Alt on my keyboard, so it shrinks and remains in the center. Well, that looks way too small, so I might bring it out again. Remember, because it's a vector, it shouldn't matter if I make it bigger or smaller. It should stay the same beautiful quality. And then when I'm done, I'm going to call it Portal 1. And then down here where it says Beach Ball, I'm going to call it Portal. The reason why I want to call it Portal 1 in the costumes is just in case later if I'm coding, I don't want to get confused between the costume and the sprite itself. Oh, whoops, I didn't bring it back to 100. So now if I bring it back to 100, it's still too big. So there you go. We'll quickly make it a little smaller. Thought it was a bit fishy that it was so small when I made it like that. Brilliant, that looks good. So now clicking back onto costume, we want to now code the game, so whenever we begin and click the green flag, it's going to appear in that corner there. Because right now if I drag and move it, it's going to stay there, and when I hit green flag, it's still going to be there. So hit stop, bring it to where I want it once I've hit the stop sign, and that will then, the game will remember the exact X and Y coordinates. So if I click on events and click on when the green flag is ticked when the game starts, motion will go to the X and the Y that it currently is at. So now if I move it and then press tick, it'll go back to where it was, where we've told it to go. Brilliant. Now we're going to want to code the game so when the player touches the portal, we want to change the backdrop and then change the maze level. So again, I want to hit stop. I want to go down to the bottom of our forever loop, because remember our forever loop's checking the up, down, left and right arrow keys and then checking if the character's touching a black wall or not. So the next thing we want it to do is check whether it's touching the portal. So we're going to want another if, and I'm going to put it right at the bottom here, still inside the forever loop but outside of the key presses. And I'm going to go sensing and say touching where the mouse pointer is. We can change, instead of mouse pointer, it's going to say portal. So when the player is touching the portal, then what we want to do is we want to change levels. So to do that, I'm going to go two things. First thing is events. I want to broadcast a message so the game knows it's going to go to the next backdrop. So I'm going to click on new message. I'm going to call it next backdrop. So not only am I going to do a broadcast, but I'm going to make sure the game keeps count of which backdrop I'm up to. So I'm also going to go to variables and click make a variable. This one will be called backdrop. So the backdrop number, maybe I'll go backdrop number, NO for number. And I want it to be for all sprites, meaning any one I'm on, where I'm on the maze or the portal or the backdrop, it will be able to locate the information. So then I want a change backdrop number by 1. So when I touch a portal, it's going to broadcast this message and the game will go, oh, I need to do something. And then also add 1 to whatever the backdrop number is. Don't forget, at the start of the game, we want to set our backdrop number. And I don't want it to be 0, I want it to be 1 to start with, because this will be level 1 at the start of the game. And when it touches it, it's going to go +1. So every time it touches, it'll +1 and go to a next level, next level, next level every time it touches the portal. Later on, we have the keys. We won't be adding to the backdrop. We'll make another variable about keys, but we'll get to that. So we've got broadcast next backdrop. So let's go to the backdrop and we'll need to say what happens. So we've got when the green flag is ticked, we'll go to the first backdrop. So we're going to go events and say when I get next backdrop, I'm wanting to go to the next backdrop. So that would be handy. So there's 2 ways of doing it. I could either just go when I receive next backdrop, go to the next backdrop. But to be foolproof and make sure that there's going to be no mistakes or issues, instead we can have another if. So if the backdrop equals, so we're going to need to get out the equal sign, and then variable. So we're going to say if the backdrop number equals 2, then we'll move to the second backdrop. So switch backdrop to the number 2. And later on we can do that for all of them. So then we can have if it's number 3, we'll go to, actually we may as well do it now while we're here, since we've made it. So then when we go to number 4, we want to go to number 4. And then do we have a final one? Maybe let's quickly just make a final one just in case. So if I go to backdrops, click on backdrops, I might want to just make a last one and we can edit it later. I'm just going to draw it and just say something like, yeah, you win. So pen, yay, you win. And again, it's not great. Obviously I'll change it later, but that's just for now before we forget. So I'm going to call it end screen. I think that's good enough. Brilliant. Oh, I need to type that in. End screen, enter. Brilliant. All right. So then, yeah, as I said, finally we'll do when it's backdrop number 5, we'll go to the 5th one, end screen. Brilliant. All right, so if we hit the green flag again, we'll go to number 1, which is good. And let's recap. So we've got when you touch the portal, broadcast next backdrop. When it broadcasts, it'll then look at what number backdrop we're up to, and it'll go to that backdrop. That's nice. We want to also, when we receive the next backdrop, we're going to want to change the level. Instead of doing a when I receive backdrop, I don't want to do that just right now, because we want the level to change more often than just when we hear next backdrop, because later on when we get the keys we want the level to change but not the backdrop. So instead I'm going to put in a forever loop, so it's always checking this thing. I'm going to want an if inside that forever loop, and I want to first of all check if it is level, the backdrop number 1. We will then go to the next one. If it is level 2, we might not want to go to the next backdrop. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to operators. This is what I was thinking of the last video when I wasn't quite thinking. We're going to want to have an equal sign. So we're going to have if, instead of nothing equals 50, I'm going to say if the backdrop number equals number 2, so it's the second level that we're wanting to go to, then we're going to go to the next level, next maze. So we're going to go to looks and change costume to level 2.1. So that's what will happen once it changes this number. So let's test that. So we're going to move our character, and to save time while it's still in play, I could just be careful and click and drag my character over here and then just bring it in. And there we go. We can't quite see the background because this is in the way, but we know that it's gone to the next level, which is good. If I move this away, oh, it's gone to yeah, you win. That's not good. Oh, but why? Because look at the backdrop number. It's 4,000 something, because obviously when I touched the portal, it stayed there. My character stayed there. So what's the next thing we're going to do? We're going to make sure that when we are touching it, we disappear. So this is how we're going to make sure the portal disappears once we touch it. We're going to do the exact same as the backdrop, I think. So we're going to go, when I receive the backdrop, next backdrop, and if it is number 2, so I'm going to go to operators, equals, then variables, and backdrop number, and if it's number 2, we're going to go to looks, and we're going to hide it. And then later on, maybe under the green flag check, we'll do a forever loop, and when we get to a certain amount of keys, we can show it. So we'll do that later when we're up to keys. We probably will do that next video, I think. So there we go. So now if we quickly test it, and now if I move over here and touch it, it's disappeared. That's good. And it says number 2 here, which is good. And if I move the maze out of the way, we can see it is on the second backdrop of the life cycle. So that's perfect. Alright, so that's all working so far. Brilliant. So now we're going to need to know, well, what's going to happen if I touch the backdrop again? Oh no, we already know that works, because before I went to 6,000 or something and it worked. So I think, as far as I can tell, it's all set up. If I'm just double checking everything, I think we're ready to go to the next video, I believe. That looks good to me. All right, so in this next video, I'll stop this one now. In the next video, we're going to learn about setting up a key and making sure that when we touch the key, this maze will change a little bit. And the portal will only appear when we get to a certain amount of keys. So I look forward to showing you how to do that then.